Bangkok, February 1971. The heat hits you before anything else, not warmth, but weight. The kind that sits on your chest like a hand pressing down, that makes the air thick and visible, that turns every breath into an act of effort. February in Bangkok isn't winter, it isn't anything forgiving. It's the city at full intensity, humidity climbing past the point where sweat stops cooling you and starts suffocating you instead. This is the context. This is the atmosphere inside which everything that happens tonight will happen. Lumpini Stadium, the most sacred Muay Thai arena in the world, not the biggest, not the newest, but the most sacred, because sacred isn't about size. It's about what happened here, what keeps happening here, night after night and year after year. Fighters climbing through those ropes and leaving pieces of themselves on that canvas. Some leave blood, some leave pride. Some leave careers that never recover from what this place does to men who thought they were ready. 3,000 people fill the wooden bleachers tonight, packed so tightly that the structure creaks and sways like something breathing. The smell is overwhelming: sweat, cigarette smoke, the sharp chemical bite of liniment, and tiger balm so thick in the air you can taste it, feel it settling at the back of your throat. This is what dedication smells like when it concentrates into one humid room. Before we go any further, I need to be honest with you. My heart sank when I saw that over 90% of you watch these videos but haven't subscribed yet. If you're inspired by the mindset, discipline, and legacy of Bruce Lee, take a moment to hit that subscribe button. It's completely free and helps me keep bringing you powerful stories like this. And while you're here, I want to hear from you. What do you think about Bruce Lee's philosophy and the story you just saw? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one, and I can't wait to see your perspective on this legendary journey. Thai royalty occupies the VIP section. Red silk cushions, gold trim catching the overhead lights, a respectful distance maintained between themselves and the common seats by people who understand that proximity to violence must be carefully calibrated. Below them, gangsters and gamblers move their hands like conductors directing invisible orchestras, signals passing between them faster than words, money flowing in directions that regular spectators can't track and wouldn't understand. Tourists raise cameras. Martial artists from across Asia, Japan, Korea, Hong Kong, the Philippines, who made actual pilgrimages for exactly this night, sit quietly among the noise, studying everything. All of them here. All of them watching the same empty ring under brutal overhead lights. And then there is Nong Mai. They call her the Iron Rose, and you need to understand what that name carries before you can understand anything else that happens tonight. Iron because she is harder than anything they have ever put in front of her, harder than opponents, harder than expectations, harder than every limitation people tried to impose on what a female fighter could be or achieve. She was not born this way. She was made this way through years of training that would break most professional athletes before the first month ended. Rose because she is beautiful, and not despite the fighting, because of it. There is a specific kind of beauty that only comes from total commitment to something difficult, from choosing hardship so consistently that it reshapes you into something comfort never could have built. 70 professional fights, 70 consecutive victories, not one loss, not one draw, not one moment where someone watching thought she might actually fall. She started at 17, a girl from a poor village outside Chiang Mai where the roads out were few and narrow, and she chose the narrowest one. She conditioned her shins against banana trees until the bark split and the wood surrendered. She accepted pain as information rather than warning. She trained before dawn every day for 8 years until she became something that the sport had never quite seen before. Now she is 25 and nobody in Thailand can touch her. The challengers who still come do so because pride demands it or because the money is good enough to justify a loss they already expect. They climb through the ropes half defeated. She ends it for them quickly. Tonight is supposed to be different. Tonight is not a championship defense. It is a demonstration, a carefully arranged spectacle designed to show Western journalists in the front row that Muay Thai is not just for men, that female fighters deserve genuine reverence, that this tradition can speak to the modern world on its own terms. Nong Mai stands center ring in red silk shorts with gold trim, wearing the traditional Monkan headband blessed by monks that very morning. She performs the Wai Kru, the ritual pre-fight dance, the honoring of teachers and lineage, and the spirit of everything that made her. 3,000 people watch in complete silence, not the silence of boredom but the silence of recognition. When she finishes and looks out at those 3,000 faces, they look back at her with hunger, with expectation, with the particular electricity of a crowd that came to witness something they already believe is inevitable. Nongmai has proven herself 70 times. Tonight will be 71. The promoter climbs into the ring, a heavy man in an expensive suit already soaked through with sweat, his tie somehow still formal, his expression the expression of someone whose entire career has been spent translating between worlds that don't naturally understand each other. He takes the microphone and explains it simply. Nongmai will walk into the audience. She will select a volunteer, anyone, male or female, any size, any style. She will demonstrate the superiority of traditional Muay Thai against whatever the audience provides. The crowd murmurs immediately, a wave of unease moving through 3,000 people at once, because everyone in those bleachers understands the same thing at the same time. Nobody wants to be chosen. Nongmai requested this herself. She insisted on it, over the objections of the promoters who understood the risk better than anyone. Because she is tired of the whispers that follow her victories, tired of people saying her record doesn't count because she only fights women, tired of the implication that female excellence operates in some separate, lesser category that doesn't touch the real thing. She has been extraordinary inside a box for 8 years. Tonight she steps outside it. She climbs through the ropes, drops to the arena floor, and starts walking through the crowd, and immediately everyone she approaches leans back. Eyes go to the floor, hands go to faces. The avoidance is almost comic, 3,000 people simultaneously trying to become invisible. She moves through section after section with the patience of someone who has spent 8 years learning to trust instinct over urgency. Drunk locals in section A, tourists clutching cameras in section B, already filming their own near miss. Women and children in section C, and then section D, something different here. Fighters. Serious people who came not to be entertained, but to study, to understand what championship Muay Thai looks like up close. She can feel the difference immediately, the way the energy in this section sits differently from the rest of the stadium. Her eyes move across the faces one by one until they stop, completely and without drama, on one man in row 12. He is small, Asian, Chinese perhaps, wearing a dark button-up shirt and dark slacks, street clothes, office clothes, the clothes of a man who had somewhere else to be before this. He is not drinking. He is not talking to anyone around him. He is not watching the spectacle the way spectacles get watched, with the open hunger of entertainment. He is studying quietly and completely, with a stillness that is not passive but deeply, carefully active. Something about him registers in the part of Nongmai's instinct that 8 years of competition has sharpened past the point of explanation. She points directly at him. The crowd turns. The laughter starts within seconds. First confusion, then amusement, then open ridicule spreading through the wooden bleachers like fire through dry grass. The man next to the chosen volunteer leans over in a panic, whispers urgently in English that he doesn't have to do this, that it's not too late. The chosen man shakes his head slightly and says, simply, that it's fine. He stands, and now everyone sees him fully under the overhead lights, 5'7" at most, perhaps 140 pounds, no visible muscle through the shirt, no hand wraps, no fighter's posture. He looks like he made a wrong turn between his hotel and wherever he was actually supposed to be. The crowd's laughter finds new peaks. The journalists in the front row are writing with both hands. The promoter, growing concerned, leans down to Nongmai and whispers in Thai that perhaps this isn't ideal. The man looks very small, very unprepared. This might not make for a convincing demonstration. Nongmai doesn't hesitate. She chose randomly. He volunteered. They continue. The man walks to the ring with an unhurried ease that the crowd reads as obliviousness, climbs the steps, ducks through the ropes, and stands under the lights in his office clothes. The promoter approaches with the microphone. The man gives his name quietly, clearly. Bruce Lee. Nobody reacts. The name means nothing, not to the Thai crowd, not to the tourists, not to the martial artists who flew in from across Asia. When asked about his experience, he says he practices Wing Chun and his own system, something called Jeet Kune Do. The promoter has never heard of it. Neither has anyone else. The laughter finds one final peak, and then the bell rings. The referee explains the rules to both fighters: light contact, demonstration only, no knockout attempts, and they touch gloves in the center of the ring. In that moment, Nongmai looks directly into Bruce Lee's eyes, and she sees something she doesn't immediately have words for. Not fear. Not the specific variety of forced calm that trained fighters wear when they are terrified, but disciplined enough to hide most of it. Something else entirely, a focus with no performance in it, a clarity that isn't projecting anything to anyone, that exists purely for its own functional purposes. It is strange to her. In 70 fights, most people facing her have shown fear. This man shows nothing. She moves first, settling into her traditional Muay Thai stance, weight perfectly distributed, hands high, chin down, everything positioned through 8 years of drilling the same movements until they stopped being movements and became posture, became default, became the shape her body takes without conscious instruction. She throws a jab, testing, fast and snapping, but not fully committed, designed to gather information rather than cause damage. Bruce moves his head just slightly, just enough, and the punch misses by 2 inches. The crowd thinks it's luck. She throws a full combination, jab, cross, low kick, the sequence that has ended real professional careers, and Bruce simply isn't there when the strikes arrive. He has moved with such minimal displacement that it barely registered as movement at all, more like the space he occupied shifted just enough to make her miss. Nongmai resets, and for the first time in 8 years of professional fighting, she feels something unfamiliar at the edge of her awareness. His footwork matches nothing she recognizes, not Muay Thai, not Western boxing, not any of the styles she has studied or faced. It is fluid and continuously adaptive, changing its shape in direct response to hers, maintaining no fixed position, but instead a constant, intelligent relationship with wherever she is. She increases pressure, throws her knee, the technique that has ended 15 fights, launched from legs conditioned against banana trees for 8 years. His hand comes down, meets the knee mid-flight, and redirects it so slightly, so precisely, that the power simply evaporates. Not a block, something more unsettling than a block. Control. She attacks with her elbow next, one of Muay Thai's most dangerous weapons, devastatingly effective at close range. Bruce slips it, moves inside the technique to where she cannot strike effectively, and his hand touches her shoulder. Light, gentle, almost kind. Then he is gone, back to distance, and the message is so clear it doesn't require words. He could have countered. He chose not to. The crowd has stopped laughing. The murmuring that replaced the laughter is now fading too, and in its place, something rarer is settling over 3,000 people, genuine, uncertain silence. They came to watch their champion dismantle a volunteer. Instead, they are watching the volunteer make their champion look, for the first time in 8 years, ordinary. Nongmai's pride ignites. 70 victories did not come from backing down, did not come from managing situations carefully, did not come from anything except will and refusal and the absolute conviction that she would not lose. She attacks with everything, full combinations, punches and kicks and elbows and knees, every technique that made her champion, every weapon that built her undefeated record fight by fight over 8 years. Bruce moves through all of it like water, finding the spaces between solid things, slipping and evading and redirecting without ever stopping her force with force, without ever meeting her energy with opposing energy, getting her strikes away by millimeters and making her miss by the smallest possible margins. It is more demoralizing than being hit. Being hit she understands. This she has no framework for. After 90 seconds, he decides to end it. She throws her jumping knee, the technique that has won her 20 of her 70 fights, explosive and committed and carrying everything. Bruce steps inside it instead of away from it, his left hand controlling her knee as it passes, and his right hand rises and stops exactly 1 inch from her throat. Extended, perfectly placed, perfectly controlled. The referee sees it, blows the whistle immediately, and steps between them. Bruce releases, steps back and bows. Nongmai stands there breathing hard, sweating, something moving across her face that the crowd cannot name because they have never seen it on her before. She did not land a single clean technique in 90 seconds. She could not touch him, and he stopped with his hand at her throat and chose, deliberately and consciously, not to finish it. The arena is completely silent. 3,000 people who came loud and expectant and certain of what they were about to see are sitting in the particular quiet of people whose understanding has just been rearranged without their permission. Their champion didn't lose, not officially, not on any record that will be written down anywhere. But she was controlled, contained, and shown with complete clarity that someone exists who operates at a level above her. The promoter climbs into the ring and takes the microphone with the expression of a man searching urgently for language that doesn't yet exist, and finally offers only that it was an interesting demonstration, two different styles, two different approaches. The applause that follows is weak and confused. Nongmai approaches Bruce before he can leave. She bows, not the polite bow of sportsmanship, not the bow that fighters exchange as formality, but a deep and formal bow of the kind reserved for people who have genuinely earned it, the bow you offer a master when you have just understood what a master actually is. He returns it with equal formality and equal sincerity. She speaks in Thai, and the promoter translates. She asks who he is. She asks what style that was. She asks where he learned it, and from whom, and for how long. Bruce answers in English, and the promoter carries it back across the language. He practices martial arts. He studies many styles. He tries to understand what actually works rather than what tradition says should work. She asks the real question then, the one that has been sitting behind all the other questions. She tells him he could have beaten her. She asks why he didn't. Because this is a demonstration, he says, not a fight. He has no desire to harm her or to damage what she has built over 8 years of genuine dedication. She is clearly a great champion, and great champions deserve respect, not spectacle. The promoter translates this into Thai, and something shifts visibly in Nongmai's expression, not relief, not gratitude exactly, but the specific softening that happens when someone who has been braced for disrespect receives its opposite instead. She extends her hand, Western handshake. Bruce takes it. The crowd reacts to this differently than they reacted to anything else in the evening. Not the loud excitement of a knockout, not the confused murmuring of the past 90 seconds, but real applause, sustained and genuine, and building slowly from sections that don't usually agree on anything. Not for victory, not for defeat, for what they are watching in this handshake, in this exchange between a 70-fight champion and the man who could have ended her streak and consciously chose not to. Somewhere in those 3,000 people, the understanding is shifting from what they saw to what it meant, though most of them will not find the right words for it until much later, if ever. As Bruce climbs back to his seat, the questions begin moving through the crowd in waves. Who was that? Where is he from? What was that style? Why did she bow like that? Why did he stop when he could have finished it? The man who had been sitting next to Bruce leans over as he settles back into his seat, and he is equal parts astonished and worried. That was incredible, he whispers, but you just made Thailand's national champion look ordinary on Thai soil. We should probably leave. Bruce shakes his head. He didn't embarrass her, he says. He showed her respect. There is a difference between those two things, and the difference matters more than the crowd's reaction or the journalist's interpretation or anything else that happens in the aftermath of this evening. After the event, as 3,000 people move toward the exits in the kind of stunned, half-distracted way of audiences who witnessed something they can't yet categorize, a group of young Thai fighters finds Bruce near the arena entrance. They bow. They ask, in careful broken English, if he would be willing to show them something, some of what they just saw, some of the principles underneath it. He tells them he is only in Bangkok for 3 days, here for a film meeting, but that tomorrow, if they come, he will show them what he can in the time available. Not a full teaching, an introduction. They accept immediately, and in that acceptance, in that eagerness, something quietly begins. 20 Thai fighters show up the next morning at a gym outside the city. Not the 5 or 6 who might have been expected, 20, which means the word traveled fast through the night, through the gyms and the training halls and the networks of fighters who all know each other in the specific way that people who share discipline always do. Bruce Lee spends 4 hours with them. 4 hours of Wing Chun principles and Jeet Kune Do philosophy. 4 hours of showing them that the question isn't which style is correct, but which principles are true, that adaptation matters more than tradition, that being water, taking the shape of whatever contains you, finding the path of least resistance, never hardening into something that can be broken, is both a martial philosophy and something much larger than that. Nongmai continues fighting. She wins 15 more fights after that February night, each one a professional victory that adds to a record that already stands as one of the most extraordinary in the history of the sport. She retires at 85 consecutive victories, still undefeated, still champion. The iron rose until the end. But the story she tells most often in her later years is not about any of those 85 fights. It is about the 90 seconds in February 1971 when she threw everything she had at a small man in street clothes and could not touch him, and he stopped with his hand at her throat and chose mercy. She tells it not as a story about loss, because it isn't one. She tells it as a story about the moment she understood that there was a level above the one she occupied, and that understanding it was more valuable than her record, more valuable than her title, more valuable than anything she had accumulated across 8 years of professional dominance. When she becomes a trainer herself, which she does, and a great one, she tells her students about Bruce Lee on the first day of serious training every time, without exception. She tells them what he said when she asked why he didn't finish it. She tells them what his movement felt like from inside the attempt to hit him, not like facing a better fighter, but like facing someone who understood fighting at a level where the concept of winning had been replaced by something quieter and more complete. He was smaller than me, she tells them, lighter than me, less experienced in Muay Thai than fighters I beat in my first year. But he understood combat at a depth I didn't reach until much later, and maybe haven't fully reached even now. He showed me that technique without philosophy is empty, that strength without wisdom is just controlled damage, that the greatest fighters are not the ones who destroy their opponents, they are the ones who understand so completely that they don't need to. The Western journalists who were there that night write their stories and get it wrong almost universally. They write about cultural clash, about East versus West, about the curiosity of an undefeated female champion fighting a random volunteer. They write about the optics and the novelty and completely miss the thing that actually happened, which was not a martial arts demonstration at all, but a philosophical argument made entirely through movement. The 20 Thai fighters who trained with Bruce the following morning understand it correctly, and they carry it forward with them into decades of teaching and training, and telling the story to their own students, who tell it to theirs, so that the lesson propagates forward through time the way real lessons do, not through documentation, but through the living chain of people who understood something and refused to let it disappear. Dan Inosanto, who had been the panicked man in the seat next to Bruce all along, walked with him through Bangkok's humid streets that night after the event, and eventually asked the question he had been holding since the referee blew the whistle. What if she had been better, he asked. What if she had actually hit you? Bruce stopped walking and looked at his friend with an expression that wasn't performing anything for anyone. Then I would have learned something, he said. That is why we accept challenges, not to prove we are better, to find out what we don't know. They walked in silence for a while after that, and then Dan asked what he actually did learn, and Bruce said that Muay Thai is beautiful and powerful and real, that 70 victories means something genuine and serious, and that respect matters more than dominance. Always, without exception. In every context where the two come into conflict, respect is the correct choice. Bangkok, February 1971. Lumpini Stadium. 3,000 witnesses, one undefeated champion, one volunteer who changed the temperature of the room just by standing in it. A fight that didn't end in victory. A demonstration that ended in something rarer and more durable than victory. A moment when martial arts stopped being about competition and became, briefly and completely, philosophy. The greatest fighter, Bruce Lee said once, is not the one who wins every fight. It is the one who has understood so deeply that winning and losing have become the wrong question entirely. On a humid February night in Bangkok, in front of 3,000 people who mostly misunderstood what they saw, he proved it. If this story hit you the way it's supposed to hit you, not just as a fight, not just as history, but as something that made you think differently about what mastery actually looks like, then you already know what to do. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. The person still confusing dominance with greatness, still measuring strength by how much damage it causes, still missing the point that the most dangerous people in any room are usually the quietest ones in it. Subscribe, because this is what we do here. We find the stories that got buried under the wrong headlines, the lessons that the journalists missed, the moments where something real happened and almost nobody noticed. There are 100 more where this one came from. Bruce Lee didn't need an audience to validate what he knew, but the stories do. So hit subscribe, Share this with someone who matters to you and come back. The next one is already waiting.